I'm Courtney Danforth. I'll be presenting on an assignment that teaches listening via transcription. While I was preparing a curriculum for my sound writing course, I needed to assign listenings every week. Of the 16 listenings I chose, only one offered a professional transcript along with their audio. These are the listenings I assigned. Most are from public Anglophone radio or are public radio adjacent. I could not ethically assign audio texts that would be inaccessible to any students with hearing or listening issues. From this list of 16 named shows, one provided a professional transcript, 2 offered semi-human transcripts, and 13 offered no transcript at all. StoryCorps has human-produced transcripts of its content. Theirs is an example of about the best quality of transcript of the shows I surveyed. It does a great job of distinguishing one speaker from another. On the other hand, it's missing some things that would make it a more useful document for someone reading instead of listening. There are no time codes to communicate pacing, and there's no description of mood. The transcriber has indicated music, with no details about its function or purpose. I asked StoryCorps why their transcripts were so good. Katie Frazier provided the answer that you see here. Part of StoryCorps' mission includes taking recording equipment into the field to record stories from the general public. I suspect that this is a good part of why they are attentive to questions of access. StoryCorps begins its transcription work as part of their tape logging process. They transcribe the field recordings, then work back and forth between audio editor and word processor as they compose their pieces. The same transcript document is shared by their fact checker and their outreach and social media workers. It's an integral part of the workflow, and because it's essential for the team, it never feels like extra work, Frazier told me. By cyborg, I mean a transcript that was partially produced by machines and partially by humans. This screenshot from the This American Life transcript archive is a huge step forward from their policy for the first 22 years of broadcast. Previously, their policy was openly hostile to the idea of words on a page in any way representing their audio composition. Now, as you will see in the italicized note, they provide transcripts, but not at a quality they approve for quoting in print. There's no mention of accessibility or enhancement that can be provided by a transcript, and I find their expectation of quotability as a driver for transcription to be sort of strange. Reveal has a nearly identical policy and process. I teach a second-year Humanities Special Topics course, Sound Writing, for non-majors and Humanities Distribution Credit. Enrollment is 35 in a 16-week course at an urban, Hispanic-serving community college. I've taught it 7 times in the last 5 years in both meet space and online modes. My teaching circumstances led me to create an assignment that both, 1, arguably, serves the purposes of accessible course content, and 2, develops core competencies in reading, writing, and research. I assigned my students to edit machine-processed transcripts as a note-taking or active listening strategy in their weekly homework. The assignment includes both hearing and non-hearing students, and in using the familiar tools of text processing, guides students to apply their reading and writing skills as listening and research skills. The goals of the assignment are to practice critical listening, a research skill, practice translating the grammar of sound to the grammar of conventional or visual writing, prompt investigations of special capacities of sound versus page or screen writing, support student success by coaching students through disciplined listening, collectively build quality, usable, accessible transcripts for my chosen sound text for future access needs in the class, and to collectively explore the meanings of transcription as a mode of transmedia. Each week I've assigned 2 listenings, examples of successful podcasts, radio shows, and similar productions. Students are expected to listen to both and to edit a machine-produced transcript for 1. There is an accessibility option available for the assignment, where students read and edit both transcripts instead of listening, whether for preference or necessity. I provide copies of the professional transcripts when they're available, or transcripts I produced myself with a free web tool. The ones I produce automatically are filled with dirty data. Among the errors you see in this dirty transcript are: the speakers are not identified, only as unknown. Independent Producer Project is not capitalized. The call letters of the radio station, KCRW, are written as KC or W. The title of the show is written unfixable and fictional instead of unfictional. The first 2 lines beginning at 15 seconds are represented as a fused sentence. Ouija is spelled we-G, and the words printed on the Ouija board should appear in quotation marks in standard edited typed English. As is, these transcripts are little better than a gesture towards accessibility. However, they're also perfect for testing how carefully hearing students are listening. Only the sloppiest homework will fail to correct the station ID, right? So far, I've not had anyone take me up on the option to edit transcripts without listening. That's my accessibility option for the assignment. But I imagine that even someone not listening at all would recognize that error and be able to correct it. In addition to transcriber statements, I have assigned an overall transcription reflection as part of the student's final. I'm quoting anonymously with permission from these documents.
Throughout the songwriting course, we will have to edit transcripts of podcasts and type one off for extra credit. Doing this has been an interesting experience, as it is not as easy as I thought it would be. The transcription process was difficult to type off from scratch, since I had to consistently pause to catch up with the narrator and type up what I had missing. The first time doing this was very confusing because of the speed of the talking, as well as having to describe the tone, human sounds, and music that would play. I had to pause frequently and to be able to type out 10 seconds of narration as well as when music was playing, because I had to figure out what type of music it was.
The strongest student finding from the transcription experience is that it is long and mostly boring and maybe pointless and pretty irritating work. I agree, but that is no reason not to assign it. In finding the work tedious, some students develop appreciation for the work of making accessible texts. I'm not at all unhappy with this result, even though it isn't my primary purpose. The students' reflections identify 6 areas of focus: grammar, homonyms, time coding, accent, speaker identity, non-linguistic sound. Among the non-linguistic sounds that students recorded was laughter. Laughter. To be clear, I do not think that this was a serious effort to codify transcription of laughter. I just thought it was funny. Analysis. My transcription assignment works a bunch of valuable listening skills. Resourcefulness.
But one in particular that was hard was Dollar Store Town, as it had a lot of Chinese words and accents that were literally not understandable. So I had to just type in speaking in Chinese for these parts. Redemption Song was also hard because of the Jamaican accents in it, but it turned out good as I even googled the lyrics to the songs of Bob Marley that were played in this podcast episode.
Although I didn't explicitly anticipate this result, in having students struggle to transcribe accents in foreign language, they're flexing their language and cultural capacities. The student you hear here chose to skip transcribing a foreign language, but used research skills to accurately transcribe song lyrics in foreign accented English. These are interesting choices for them to make. Disciplined listening.
I think that a transcript is very useful. At first I thought it was extra work, but having a transcript helps the audience go along with the audio. It helps keep them on a path, and if there is ever a confusion, it allows them to go back and read through.
In this distribution course for non-majors, my job is to teach generalizable, transferable, scholarly humanities skills. For my community college students, who are often new to academic practices, one skill they struggle with is the discipline of study, active reading, research practice, note-keeping. Having students read along as they're listening and make corrections supports them in staying attentive to their coursework. Listening for tone and mood.
Even though I tried to keep human sounds to a minimum, I started to make sure I included the tone and emotion cues, like laughter or a sad, angry tone, etc. This was important for me to do because I felt that if this wasn't added to the transcript, those who don't have access to the audio might interpret the text differently than it would, which would defeat the purpose of the whole work.
In an information-saturated environment such as our own, where our uncles and even local news teams get tricked by satire, I see a lot of benefit in helping students identify emotion and sarcasm when reading a text. I think teaching it with sound may be a better method than teaching it from the page. Listening as a composer. In addition to listening and transcribing each week, students in my course are also learning about audio production and practicing those skills in lab assignments. The final 20% of the course is an original sound writing production. Each lab assignment is part of the scaffold for their final project.
Names, dialogue, and time were my priorities when editing a transcript. I felt that these elements were important and essential to a transcript. What I would do extra was add some non-linguistic human sounds. Things like laughter or music, transitions, and background noises. It's nice having these elements, but I would rather have the speaker names than knowing when they laughed. To me, these last elements seemed as extra, and since they were much more faster to catch, I will leave them to the end. If I did not have an opportunity to add them, I did not feel bad because I knew their importance did not outweigh the rest. You could still use the transcript without them.
Not only does the transcription assignment guide students listening, it encourages them to strategize their own composition. Students quickly learn that there's far too much work needed for anyone to make a perfect transcript, so they have to make choices about what fixes to make. Listening for context. The most obvious metaphor in sound writing is signal versus noise. As rhetoricians, it's a juicy comparison when thinking about purpose and audience and context. It's something we teach in every section of first-year writing, sometimes with video or visual texts, but usually focused on writing on a page. In teaching it with sound and sound writing, however, students rediscover these concepts in an exciting way. One student wrote,
"The assignments have helped me tone in on listening to what's going throughout the audio clip, while paying attention to what is being said, but also listening to certain noise that may be happening in the background, such as someone uncrossing their legs and hearing the two fabrics of their pants scuff against each other, or when someone takes a slight inhale and you can hear the slight pause of them taking in air. It can help me get a sense of what the environment is at the time where the episode is being recorded, just from listening to the background noise, whether they're in a crowded supermarket or inside an office."
Immersion. When asked about their purpose in transcription, students gravitate to a concept I don't think I gave them: immersion. Immersion is something that sight readers experience too, but it does not surprise me that some students are more able to access that experience through sound. I'm very intrigued by the idea that we can learn immersive writing through transcription. I bet this could be a useful method for teaching creative writing.
This was revised in a way that if someone who wasn't to listen to the audio of the story would still be immersed in the story. That meaning every sound, every laugh, and other little sounds that were heard in the audio were taken into account and written in the transcript.
Slow listening. This last finding from my experience with this assignment is one that's accidental and delightful. Apparently, the transcription assignment teaches appreciation for sound writing and transcribing. One student reports their growth as an informed listener.
But overall, this part of the class really taught me a lot. I truly felt like typing through the corrections of the transcript really helped me understand the very main concept and idea, or any perspectives presented through the audio. It helped me understand the concept of drama in audio podcast shows. It helped me understand the different ways that perspectives are told. It helped me a lot in how I created my projects, because a lot of the elements I learned from the Listen and Listen Plus assignments, I incorporated into my projects.
Conclusions. Students need more structure, preparation, and assistance with distributing responsibility for editing transcripts. When I teach this course again in a couple of months, I'll be modifying the assignment to have individual students focus on different elements in a wiki, trading roles from week to week. Although originally I'd wanted to see what activities students self-selected, I now think they will better benefit from more defined roles. I'm curious to see how students innovate in their transcription when the scope of their work is narrowed. I'm also curious how much time it will take to produce a document that truly engages with audio on the page. Reverb. I have been told by both producers and sound writing teachers that they don't have time for accessibility, that it's impossible to produce a parallel version of sound writing in non-audio, and that reading cannot be done except with one's eyes. I reject all three claims. Not only is it unethical for sound text made or taught with public money to be inaccessible, any compositionist should recognize the benefits of teaching and reading with transmedia. As my assignment and experiment demonstrates, transcription teaches essential reading, writing, and research skills. Some it teaches better than writing on a page.
Thank you for listening.